Hello everyone, and welcome to my Sister Wives For You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The air in the courtroom was heavy with expectancy, creating a cavern of tension. The harsh fluorescent lights made Kody Brown's signature mane of hair less brilliant as he sat at the defendant's table, his big shoulders bent. Once the self-assured head of a large polygamous family, the Sister Wives patriarch now faced a legal reckoning that threatened to topple everything he had worked so hard to achieve. His gaze darted anxiously to the gallery, where his 4 wives sat in a row, their faces a kaleidoscope of emotions, Christine's eyes glistening with unshed tears, Meri's jaw set in defiance, Robyn's face pale and guarded, and Janelle's gaze steady but unreadable. With her gavel lying like a guillotine poised to fall, the judge, a severe woman known for her ability to cut through bullshit, gazed down at Kody. From what appeared to be a straightforward property rights issue, the case had grown into a public spectacle that exposed the Brown family's divisions. It all started with a dispute over the Coyote Pass property in Arizona, which Kody had bought with the intention of creating a single-family compound. However, years of poor management, unpaid taxes, and shady financial transactions had put them in legal hot water, with creditors vying for their business and the family's future in jeopardy. As he had so frequently done in his personal life, Kody, ever the optimist, had thought he could charm his way through the processes. However, the judge seemed unmoved by charm. The facts were devastating, and she was here for the facts. Kody's financial records were a maze of irregularities, with money being embezzled from family accounts into unrealized business projects, according to the prosecution's bleak portrayal. His youngest and legally recognized wife, Robyn, was the target of rumors of favoritism because her name was on bank accounts and deeds much more frequently than the others. Once devoted to Kody's vision, the other women have started to doubt his leadership. Trust, treachery, and the disintegration of a family that had formerly taken pride in its unity were all major themes in the courtroom drama. Kody lost faith as the judge started to read her decision. Every syllable was a hammer blow in her steady voice. "Mr. Brown," she added, "you are almost reckless in the way you have mismanaged family assets. You will be held personally accountable for making amends if the court determines that you are liable for the unpaid debts on the Coyote Pass property." The room echoed with a collective gasp. Kody's face went pale, and although his mouth opened in protest, nothing came out. The court went on to describe the sanctions, which included selling personal possessions to pay off the debts. This was a terrible blow to Kody's pride and the family's already precarious financial situation. Sitting closest to Kody, Robyn appeared to withdraw. Her eyes stayed away from the others, and her hands curled in her lap. She had been Kody's preferred wife for years, the person he consulted for advice, and the one whose kids seemed to get the majority of his attention. However, a more sinister truth was now coming to light, one that had been discussed among the other spouses but had never been revealed out loud until today. Emails, bank statements, and secret agreements that the prosecution had discovered indicated Robyn had been covertly safeguarding her personal financial future while the rest of the family suffered. Much of the family's liquid assets were placed in a secret trust that was created only in her name and was redirected there under the pretense of business investments. The courtroom was rocked by the revelation. Meri felt her blood boil as she sat down 2 seats. She had endured Kody's emotional detachment, the gradual breakdown of their spiritual union, and the ongoing demand to show her commitment for decades while living in this family. She had put her all into their joint projects, including the bed and breakfast she had battled to start and the family's reality TV revenues. It was an unbearable betrayal to discover that Robyn had been embezzling money when Meri was barely making ends meet. Her fists clenched, and she couldn't stop thinking about late-night arguments and Kody's contemptuous shrugs when she had voiced worries about justice. It was enough. Meri leaned forward and spoke loudly as the judge took a moment to shuffle her papers. "May I speak, Your Honor?" The room went cold. Kody's eyes were wide with fear as his head snapped toward her. The judge nodded but arched an eyebrow. Meri rose, her small body exuding a rage that was out of proportion to her size. Her voice was firm but tinged with anguish as she started. I've given everything to this family. I've given up my happiness and goals in order to keep us together. And we now know that Robyn, she paused, looking at her sister-wife, who now had her face buried in her hands, has been concealing money while the rest of us were in the dark. I desire responsibility. Justice is what I desire. Murmurs broke out in the gallery. Ever the pragmatic, Janelle gave a small nod, her accountant's brain already working out the ramifications of Robyn's covert trust. Christine wiped a tear from her cheek, still caught up in the legal knot despite having left the family years before. No one had paid attention to her warnings regarding Robyn's effect over Kody. The truth could no longer be denied. Kody's voice rose in a last-ditch appeal as he attempted to interrupt. Let's deal with this at home. Meri, this isn't the place. However, he was silenced when the judge's gavel cracked down. She added angrily, You will have your opportunity to answer, Mr. Brown. Go on, Mrs. Brown, she continued, turning to Meri. Meri's remarks were a flood of repressed annoyance. She talked about how she felt marginalized for years and how Kody gave Robyn all the attention while ignoring her own needs. She described the financial hardships she had endured and the loans she had taken out to support the family, only to learn that Robyn had been secretly accumulating a nest egg. With a broken voice, Meri stated, I trusted her. I had faith that we would all be in this together. However, it was false. Robyn's eyes flashed with a mixture of indignation and shame as her head sprang up. It's unfair, she screamed, her voice shaking. I was defending my kids. It was Kody's idea, so he told me to put up the trust. Shock filled the courtroom. Kody's hands gripped the table as though to stabilize himself while his face turned from pale to ashen. His power as the patriarch of the family was directly challenged by the accusation, which lingered in the air. The judge leaned forward, unaffected by the scene. Are you claiming, Mrs. Robyn Brown, that Mr. Brown gave you instructions to establish this trust without the other plaintiff's knowledge? Robyn paused, looking from the judge to Kody and back again. She stumbled. I thought it was for the family. I had no idea it would lead to all of this. Janelle, who had been quiet up until this point, raised her voice in a firm yet composed manner. I have examined the family's finances for years, Your Honor. I can attest that nobody told us about this trust. Kody needs to explain himself if Robyn is telling the truth. Although she was tactful in her remarks, it was obvious that Kody had favored some over others, and it had cost them all. The judge looked to Kody, her gaze narrowing. Mr. Brown, are you willing to respond to these accusations? Kody's lips opened and shut as he searched for a reason. With the weight of his own choices, the man who had once led a household of 4 women and 18 children suddenly appeared little. Weakly, he said, I believed I was doing what was best. I didn't intend to cause harm to anyone. The judge's face was uncompromising. When financial malfeasance is the outcome, intent is irrelevant, she stated. I expect complete cooperation from all parties involved, and this court will order a full audit of all family accounts. She took a moment to process what she had said. Regarding you, Mr. Brown, this family is on the verge of collapse due to your leadership, or lack thereof. I advise you to consider that. The session came to a close as the gavel dropped once more, but the Browns' problems continued. The women quietly grabbed their belongings while avoiding eye contact as the courtroom cleared out. Kody's world was falling apart as he sat there looking at the table. After Robyn's courtroom outburst, he lost faith in her and withdrew his hand as she sought for it. Encouraged by her act of rebellion, Meri left with a confident demeanor, resolved to regain her position within the family. Christine and Janelle looked at each other, silently agreeing that things would never be the same again. Reporters waited like vultures on the courthouse steps as the Arizona sun pounded down on them. Once a humorous narrative of unorthodox love, the Sister Wives has evolved into a warning against money, deception, and broken relationships. The hammer had fallen for Kody, and the consequences were only getting started. Meri saw it as an opportunity to retaliate and rebuild herself from the ashes of a family that had placed too much pressure on her for too long. Additionally, Robyn's dark secret, which she had attempted to conceal, was now the spark that threatened to destroy all she had worked so hard to protect. There was chaos in the days that followed. With headlines screaming about the Browns' catastrophe, the media frenzy grew more intense. Fans of the show were analyzing every aspect of the courtroom drama on social media, which was a hive of speculation. While some decried Robyn and others applauded Meri's bravery, Kody became the target of every critic who had ever questioned his ability to lead. Once a representation of unity among polygamists, the family was now a broken mess, with each member struggling to find their own way ahead. Meri immersed herself into her business endeavors, using her rage as fuel for success. Determined to leave a legacy that was all hers, she started making preparations to expand her bed and breakfast. Ever the strategist, Janelle vowed to safeguard the future of her own children by hiring a forensic accountant to sort out the family's finances. Already estranged from the family, Christine took comfort in her independence and was thankful to have left the chaos before it completely destroyed her. And Robyn's relationship with Kody was at an all-time low as she withdrew into quiet, isolated by her own actions. Kody, on the other hand, had to face the consequences of his decisions. The audit showed a history of years-long financial irresponsibility in addition to the secret trust. Impulsive real estate purchases, unasked for loans, and promises made without the resources to follow through on them all suggested a man who thought his charm could outstrip reality. However, reality had arrived, and it was harsh. The Browns had to decide whether to rebuild as a family or let it fall apart completely as the weeks stretched into months. Meetings were heated, with old wounds being resurrected and accusations flying. Kody made an effort to rally the spouses by bringing up their common history and religion, but his remarks were insincere. Suspicion and animosity had taken the place of the trust that had once bound them together. Meri in particular had had enough of making concessions. In one heated discussion, she told Kody, "I'm not here to prop up your ego anymore. I'm here for myself." Once a sign of their solidarity, the Coyote Pass dream turned into a battlefield. Robyn held onto the hope of preserving the land for her children, while Janelle pushed for its sale in order to reduce their losses. Caught in the center, Kody hesitated, unable to decide in a way that would not offend someone. The land stood as a testament to their dashed hopes, in limbo just like the family. The unraveling was both tragic and captivating for the people who had watched the Browns' journey on television. Now, in its 20th season, the sitcom has moved from humorous family moments to unvarnished, unadulterated strife. Although the expense was high, ratings skyrocketed. Strangers from all around the world were now analyzing the Browns' hardships, turning their private suffering into public knowledge. Nevertheless, there were rays of hope amid the mayhem. Meri's determination to reshape her life according to her own terms was ignited by her disobedience in the courtroom. Janelle remained focused and persistent in her focus on her kids because to her pragmatic approach. Christine found contentment in her new existence after being released from the family's restrictions. Despite being demonized, Robyn started to struggle with her part in the family's demise and sought counseling to better understand her decisions. But Kody's path was the most difficult. He had to face the man behind the patriarch after being stripped of his power. He started going to counseling, which he had previously written off as a sign of weakness. He was forced to confront the insecurities that had fueled his craving for control during the taxing sessions. In one session, he said candidly, "I thought I was holding us together. However, I might have been merely impeding us." The Brown family's future was still up in the air. Would they manage to live together, or would they all go their separate ways and make their own way? Although the courtroom had shown their shortcomings, it had also provided them with an opportunity to rebuild, provided they had the fortitude to do so. The hammer had dropped for the time being, and the effects of its fall would influence their lives for years to come.